Megyn Kelly explodes on elite liberal Democrats who attack Pete Hegseth during an explosive congressional hearing. So Pete Hegseth's confirmation hearing, it turned into an absolute spectacle. Now, as expected, guys, the elite liberal Democrats, they came out swinging, grilling him on everything that from who he's dated to every beer he's ever touched. But the real fireworks came from Elizabeth Warren, who tried to corner Pete Hegseth on his comments about women in the military. And let's just say that it backfired spectacularly. Now, in this fiery clip that I'm about to show you guys, Senator Elizabeth Warren, she barely even lets him speak, cutting off Pete Hegseth like she's auditioning for like a soundbite or something. But when she fires her second question, the whole room loses it. Pete Hegseth, he claps back so hard that even Elizabeth Warren's allies couldn't help but laugh at her. And so this was an absolute meltdown moment for Elizabeth Warren. And Megyn Kelly, she didn't hold back. She went nuclear on the Democrats for their embarrassing display, calling it a pathetic hit job and slamming them for their elitist hypocrisy. Get ready, guys, for this wild ride. It is a moment that you have to see to believe. Check this out.
You've got these absolutely smug, again, like Slatkin, snide, overeducated, elite libs who are just sliding in the dagger on Pete in a way that, I'm just an elite, know everything. And so I can tell you he's an idiot.
I want a long answer. Yes or no? Yes or no? Did you lead an audit? Yes or no? What are you afraid of? You can't answer this question. Women who've earned their place in their units. You have not earned your place as Secretary of Defense.
Okay. The richest part of that is Elizabeth Warren, who is basically accusing Pete of lying in his comments about women when he's trying to say what I was saying all these times. He said, I've never complained about women in the military. My complaint was about women in combat in certain roles where we've lowered standards. And they opened up the cross-examination with him, Elizabeth Warren did, by referencing comments Pete made in 2013. By the way, I think it was on my show, about women in combat and talking about how we can't lower the standards in order to facilitate it. And Pete responded by saying, I'm glad you brought up my comments from 2013, pointing out that for 12 years, I've been contextualizing that, usually, by pointing out that I'm talking about standards. And she wouldn't have it. And what she was basically saying there, she's like, I've heard of deathbed conversions, but I've never heard of a nomination conversion, is that you're a liar, Pete Hegseth. You're lying. You're just saying whatever you need to say to get a position that you want. And I will give it to her. Chief Lies-A-Lot is an expert in this particular subject matter. Remember Chief Lies-A-Lot, who tried to get ahead at Harvard and elsewhere by saying she was Indian when she's not? And then when caught, she defaulted to, well, my ma, and my pa told me that my high cheekbones meant I'm an Indian. Okay. For the record, maybe you can see them if you're watching this on YouTube. I actually kind of have high cheekbones. I do. Yeah, it's great. I've never had anything injected in them. This is all God-given. And I don't think I'm Native American. I've never had the test. Chief Lies-A-Lot, but if somebody told me I were Native American because I have high cheekbones, I think I'd check it out before I started telling people at universities that I was, so I could get tenure or hired or any sort of advancement.
Yes or no? Veterans organizations that will help our veterans get every damn thing that they deserve because they signed on the dotted line to keep us safe.
In other words, you're quite sure that every general who serves should not go directly into the defense industry for 10 years. You're not willing to make that same pledge?
I'm not a general, Senator.
You'll be the one, let us just be clear, in charge of the generals.
Hegseth made fools of Democrats within the Defense Committee. Now, I got a lot on him today, but watch out for this one clip that absolutely makes him look like a shoo-in for Secretary of Defense. A fist fight almost broke out in Congress, and President Trump makes a stunning revelation right before his inauguration. I got all of that and a lot more, but let's get back to Pete Hegseth here, guys. CNN's Scott Jennings, he said it best on X. According to him, Democrats didn't lay a glove on Hegseth. He even asked why they sent their dumbest members to this important committee. And you saw it with Senator Warren. Warren. She was clueless as to what she was saying, leading to the laughter as she showed how incompetent she was, which I guess is a weakness for some Democrats who refuse to do their research before coming into these committees. Here's what else Jennings had to say about it. And guys, thank you so much for joining me. Thanks for hitting the like button and for sharing these videos. Let's get started.
Well, in short, I think Pete Hegseth kicked their asses today. I mean, it wasn't even close. They didn't lay a glove on Hegseth. No mistakes, calm, cool, collected. I mean, before the thing even started, you had this like Code Pink, protester freak show trying to disrupt the hearing. That's the Democratic base, by the way, which probably explains why the Democrats on the committee acted in such a bizarre and unprofessional way. I was appalled at some of the way these senators handle themselves and some of the lines of questioning. I mean, Tim Kaine sounded like a sex pervert in his questioning of Pete Hegseth. Blumenthal, who lied about his service in Vietnam, questioning Hegseth's qualifications. You had Gillibrand, you had Warren, you had Hirono going on unhinged rants about things. Angus King obviously doesn't understand what it's like to fight terrorism. On and on and on. Hegseth was cool in the face of this unhinged questioning. They made him look good today. It would be difficult for a Republican to vote against Hegseth after the Democrats' unseemly mudslinging today.
And these Democrats obviously try to do their best to discredit Hegseth. So let's go down the line and let's check their strategy here. Let's start off with Senator Kirsten Gillibrand and her questioning of Hegseth's view about women in the military.
As you said in your statement, do you agree anybody should be able to serve in the military if they meet the standards?
Senator, as the president has stated, I don't disagree with the overturn of Don't Ask, Don't Tell.
Great, because I don't want you thinking, can't serve if you're a mom, can't serve if you're LGBTQ, and then last, can't serve if you're a leftist. The statements you said about people who have views differently than you, that we're the enemy, are you saying that 50% of the DOD, if they hold liberal views or leftist views or are Democrats, are not welcome in the military? Are you saying that?
Senator, I volunteered to deploy to Afghanistan under Democrat President Barack Obama. I also volunteered to guard the inauguration of Joe Biden, but was denied the opportunity to serve because I was identified as an extremist by my own unit for a Christian tattoo.
These people are just helping him at this point because he's trying to tell them that political parties don't matter. He served under former President Barack Obama. He wanted to guard the inauguration of President Biden, but he was turned away. If anything, this tells us more about the Democratic Party than it does about Hegseth, because he's proven to us that he's in it to serve the country. And then, of course, there's also the matter of audits that Senator Tammy Duckworth focused on.
The largest budget you ever managed was about $18 billion. That is about 51,560 times lower than the Department of Defense budget of $825 billion. $16 million is 51,568 times smaller than the defense budget. Please describe to me, Mr. Hegseth, you talk about DOD passing an audit. Please describe to me a time or an organization that you led underwent an audit, because you say you're going to hire smarter people than you to run this audit. I'm not asking you to be an accountant. I want you to be able to tell me what kind of guidance will be given to those employees, what will happen whether or not you pass that audit. Have you led an audit of any organization? Yes or no? I don't want a long answer. Yes or no? Have you led an audit of any organization of which you were in charge?
Senator, in both of the organizations I ran, we were always completely fiscally responsible.
Yes or no, did you lead an audit?
And the way
yes
my leadership
or no, did you lead an audit?
Stated,
yes or no?
Completely
what are you afraid of? You
mischaracterized.
can't answer this question. Yes or no, did you lead an audit? Do you not know this answer?
Senator, every
yes or
part
no?
of my leadership
yes
of these organizations
yes
has
or
been
no, did you lead an audit?
misrepresented
I will
from
take
top
that as
to
a no.
bottom.
What were the findings? So there were no findings because you've never led an audit. What guidance did you give the auditors? None, because you've never led an audit. Nobody expects you to be an accountant, Mr. Hegseth. What we expect is for you to understand the complexity of this Pentagon budget process that is absolutely necessary to outfit our warfighters. Look, the Secretary of Defense is required to make quick decisions every single day with high-level information that's being provided for them. A Secretary of Defense has to have breadth and depth of knowledge. Right now, I am concerned that you have neither.
Now, is it just me, or did she keep changing the numbers at the beginning there? Because here's a number. The Department of Defense failed 7 consecutive audits. Did any of these senators call in Lloyd Austin to answer questions about these failed audits? Of course not. They're only asking Pete Hegseth because Trump chose him, which leads us to a higher set of standards. So we can say that this quack of a senator has no idea that Austin has failed his many audits. And you gotta wonder, where were these politicians within the last 4 years? Because they seem to be very critical about government officials doing their jobs all of a sudden. And yet we heard nothing from them during the entire Biden-Harris term. Now I wanna go over to Senator Roger Wicker when he dropped the mic, when he embarrassed every other senator who was grilling Hegseth.
Mr. Hegseth, it seems to me that you've supervised far more people than the average United States senator supervises typically.
And here's where the hypocrisy is revealed. Senator Mark Wayne Mullen absolutely destroys the idea that Hegseth isn't qualified by literally citing what it takes to be the Department of Defense secretary.
But I'm just making a point because there's a lot about qualifications. And I think it's so hypocritical of senators, especially on the other side of the aisle, be talking about his qualifications, not being able to lead the secretary or be the Secretary of Defense, and yet your qualifications aren't any better. You guys aren't any more qualified to be the senator than I'm qualified to be the senator, except we're lucky enough to be here. But let me read you what the qualifications of the Secretary of Defense is, because I Googled it and went through a lot of different sites, and really it's hard to see. But in general, the U.S. Secretary of Defense position is filled by a civilian. That's it. If you have served in the U.S. Army Forces and have been in the service for, you have to be retired for at least 7 years, and Congress can weigh that. And then there's questions that the senator from Massachusetts brought up about serving on a board inside the military industry, and yet your own secretary that you all voted for, Secretary Austin, we had to vote on a waiver because he stepped off the board of Raytheon. But I guess that's okay because that's a Democrat Secretary of Defense. But you so quickly forget about that. And then Senator Kaine, or I guess I better use the senator from Virginia, starts bringing up the fact that what if you showed up drunk to your job? How many senators have showed up drunk to vote at night? Have any of you guys asked them to step down and resign from their job? And don't tell me you haven't seen it, because I know you have. And then how many senators do you know have got a divorce before cheating on their wives? Did you ask them to step down? No. But it's for show. You guys make sure you make a big show and point out the hypocrisy because the man's made a mistake. And you want to sit there and say that he's not qualified? Give me a joke. I mean, it is so ridiculous that you guys hold yourself as this higher standard and you forget you got a big plank in your eye. We've all made mistakes. I've made mistakes. And Jennifer, thank you for loving him through that mistake. Because the only reason why I'm here and not in prison is because my wife loved me too.
It's evident to most Americans that this was a total failure for the Democratic Party. I checked Polymarket to see the outlook of Hegseth being placed as defensive secretary. Now, it may have changed, but it's at 97% positive right now. Now, moving on, Congresswoman Nancy Mace and Jasmine Crockett got into it as they discussed the bathroom policies in a recent hearing. Nancy Mace believes that it's unfair for biological men to enter women's bathrooms and it shouldn't be allowed. I happen to agree with her. This is something that Crockett is completely against.
We have the right to know that we're not going to have trans people filming us in the bathroom. How many of these trannies are taking selfies? These men are taking selfies in women's spaces, in the bathroom. It's gross. It's disgusting. So if we're going to talk about civil rights, let's talk about the rights of women in this country and how you are stripping them away every single day. And you're doing it in your legislation. You're doing it in your messaging. You're doing it on X. You're making women feel unsafe in this country. And you're making the opportunity for women and girls to be raped, to be sexually abused in this country, even greater than they've ever been. So don't come over here with your attitude and talk to me about rights when you're trying to take my rights as a woman, a rape survivor, away. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
I don't even know how we got there, because I tried to make it clear how many civil rights, it doesn't just boil down to one conversation, but I can see that somebody's campaign coffers really are struggling right now. So she gonna keep saying trans, 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 so that people will feel threatened. And child, listen, I want y'all to tell me whether or
Do not call me a child. I am no child.
I want
Don't
to
even
find
start.
out
I am a grown
which
woman.
of those
I am 47 years
emails
old. I have broken
actually
more
have.
glass ceilings than you
Chairman,
ever
I am
will.
reclaiming my
Let's go.
time.
You will not do that. I am
Order.
not a child.
I am reclaiming my time.
If you want to take it outside,
Mr. Chairman, the committee is not in order.
Order.
Point of order. Point of order.
Now, there are some who said that Nancy Mace asking Crockett to take things outside can be considered assault. But you got to admit that Crockett called a U.S. Congresswoman as a child. Now, let's move on to President-elect Donald Trump and the shocking news that we have. Remember that garbage truck that was used for the presidential campaign? Well, it's now set to join the inaugural parade. And if you think about it, it's kind of a symbolic in a way, because he made good on his promise to remove the garbage from the White House.
How do you like my garbage truck? This truck is in honor of Kamala and Joe Biden.
Now, speaking of Kamala, her California home was supposedly targeted by thieves recently. Now, we know that there's a lot of looting that's going on over there right now because of the wildfires. Now, guys, I covered this and a lot more in a previous live stream. You definitely have to check that out right after this one. But as always, thank you so much for hitting the like button and sharing these videos. You guys are awesome. We'll see you next time.